Okay, everyone, take your seats. And we're going to continue our budget workshop. It is 6:04, 6:05.
Mr. Platt, you have something to say? Yeah, you get comments?
Yeah, 6:04.
Get 3 minutes.
So whoever is ready to begin, let us get going.
Okay, let's talk about
whatever that term really needs to be. So as we look at, again, this is going to be all of the general fund. We are projecting the revenues that we see up above. If you'll turn, like the revenue that says taxes, if you turn to the next page, it will give you the detail on the taxes and each of the elements there. So on the taxes, 3110, 3123 are the property taxes that we receive that are allocated to the general fund. And so that would be the ones that we're projecting. Again, the 2017-18 are the figures as we closed last June 30th. And so those are the ones that are as yet unaudited, but those are the numbers as we close. And so going forward, we're projecting a moderate increase in property tax revenues that are reflected by the property sales and property then being reassessed and going up. And so it's not huge, but it is some growth. Sales and use taxes, projecting it from a moderate increase there as well to 370,000. I think that's one of the areas where we really want to see some improvement going down the road, is that we in fact get some additional property tax generating or sales tax generating facilities into the city. But it when we talk about the anomaly that Cal City is, I think these two figures are the ones that really point out to how unique we are. Because for a city of 14,000 that has the police and fire departments that we have, I mean, all of the services that we provide to the community, these two figures should be massively higher. So where we see the close to $8 million that we collect from the parcel tax, that all should be being collected in these, essentially those two areas would be the major ones that we'd see. And so that's why we've grown, why it's been a challenge as we look to the future. And so the goal that we have of enhancing our property tax base by bringing in additional businesses. Every one of the new businesses that comes in that takes a parcel of property that may be worth $50,000 or $60,000 and puts $1 million business on it, then suddenly we see that property tax starting to better reflect the kind of a community that is reflected by the size that we have. And then as we create additional retail opportunities, for Cal City, it's not likely that our sales tax revenues will ever approach what we would see in the cities around us. Tehachapi, Palmdale, Lancaster, Ridgecrest, because of the fact that we are surrounded by a pretty vibrant retail community. And so to expect that we would see a super center, Walmart or otherwise, is probably unrealistic. Should we see additional grocery store opportunities significantly larger than we have? Yes. Clearly the local economy will support that. Will we see additional fast food opportunities that will also bring in sales tax? Yes. And so we'll see those, but they will never carry the proportion of the budget that you would see if you compared us to Tehachapi, comparing our sales tax. That's where the unique nature of the cannabis industry is that it is actually taxed as many as 3 separate times when we go through that. We will see an increase in property tax when these businesses actually are constructed, and then we will be taxing the various types of activities that exist. We tax a cultivation. We then tax when that's distributed from the cultivator to a manufacturer. We tax that distribution. When the manufacturer takes that product and turns it into millions of dollars worth of their oils and the extracts that come from that, we tax that. And then when it is ultimately, as we'll talk about later on, as it ultimately then is distributed again, we tax that. And so that's where we will see property tax should start approaching what we'd normally expect. Sales tax won't, as we see that. And so that we're going to see that cannabis revenue is what will make up that difference, is that we'll see that growing. And we're projecting at this point, remember this is through June 30th of this year, a moderate amount of cannabis taxes because there's just not that many that are going to be in operation by the end of June. We will see many starting operation in the third quarter in the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, which means we'd be collecting the revenues in July following the end of the current fiscal year. So that's why you'll see these revenues existent. I'm not sure why we have the transfers from fire and police from surplus. Do you remember why we plugged that in there? Or is that something that carries over from prior years? Yeah. So at the bottom of the tax description. Okay. So that's zero. Okay. I can see an error that we did in our haste today. The business license revenue should be 55,000, not 5,500.
That's an error I'll correct at the next iteration.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's consistent with what we're seeing with the new businesses that are licensing. The other permits, you got that breakdown for me on that? Because we have the cannabis permits and building permits. So the cannabis permits, while we're looking at the detail on that, at 140,000, we're anticipating that's because the cannabis annual permit, which is, they're all prorated, they begin July 1st, and so any paid mid-year are prorated through that period of time. And so we're projecting that by the end of June, we will have collected roughly $140,000 in cannabis fees. Building permit fees are consistent with the new construction that we're seeing. Again, principally the cannabis businesses that are coming in, and those are based upon some actual figures that we're seeing through so far this fiscal year, the beginning of this fiscal year, and then projecting that through June. The MMB round 1, 2, and 3 were the revenues from the 2 prior years, and so you can see those are zeroed out. The one item that remains to be plugged into here is that once the council adopts the rules and regulations on implementing or issuing the dispensary licenses, there will be a permit, a process that people will have to pay to participate in that process, and then ultimately a decision will be made. And so we will see some additional revenues when we, assuming that we get that process going before the end of June. And so the rest of the fees are just, again, just tracking some moderate increases based upon essentially inflation that we're seeing down through there. You'll see down in the line item 36XX, which is the cell tower sales. Last night we approved the sale of the cell tower for the $246,000, and prior to that we had talked about the $300,000 for the Verizon. In all likelihood, before the end of the fiscal year, we will have dealt with the third one as well. And so the $500,000 at this point is off by about $46,000 as what we will have had in pocket by the end of the year. And then if we are able to process the other one, it will be a similar amount in the $250,000 to $300,000 range for the sale of those. But until those transactions have actually closed, we still receive the monthly rentals or the lease fees, and so you still see revenue for that. And then the charges for services where you have plan checks, maps, engineering fees, et cetera. Those are based upon what we've collected so far, as we've seen in the plan checks fees and the engineering fees that are assessed as we go through the various processes of approving site plans and then the ultimate building construction plans. Any questions in there? So when we look at the total for the year,
Pardon me, sir? If you'd like to. Let him go through the list, and then I'll call you up. Okay.
okay.
All of them? Okay. Hold on just a moment. Where did you leave off, sir? You're in the total charges for service column?
Yeah,
Okay. Would you take a question?
sure.
Come on up, sir.
Could maybe we invite the two council members-elect to sit at the tables up here so we can have them present? Sorry, that's not
To the
an
mic,
option
now you've
anymore.
got to go to the table.
Nicholas is at 8412 Redwood Boulevard. And when you're showing us here, building permits, $400,000, how many structures does that represent?
At this point, we've got 15 various sizes of projects that are under construction. Some are remodels, some are new construction, but right now there are 15 major projects under.
So $400,000 represents.
Yeah, those were numbers that actually Joe and I worked on. One project alone was almost 300,000. It's a 10-acre project, and we have several 10-acre projects with multiple buildings and structures. Is why those numbers are high. So that's actually very conservative with the projects going forward. I would suspect when we originally threw some of the numbers together with the actual projects that are in plan review, the numbers were well over 600,000. But being conservative, we plugged in that lower number.
And I'm being advised your mic's not on. Well, I'm just saying. Okay.
There it is.
I don't know.
Thank you. Plan check fees, $250,000. Again, does that represent, how many numbers does that represent?
Same thing as we looked at what we're doing right now in planning. Those numbers are also conservative because some of the projects, as far as how we collect the revenue on one project, it's 1% based on the engineer's value of all the civil work being complete, and some of those are into the $60,000 to $100,000 range. And like I said, we have multiple 5-10-acre projects going forward, so we were also conservative on those numbers.
And the same would apply to engineering fees?
Yes. And all those are recoverable, so whatever we collect as far as the building and planning correlate to cover the engineering fees.
And those are normal and traditional fees?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
So even though you may
Thank you.
have a handful of properties, but because there are multiple structures within each property, that's what you're,
Yes,
that's
and
what,
when we adopted the Green Book,
What's going on?
so when we adopted, remember the Building and Code Green Book, those fees are assessed as far as state, so we actually follow the Green Book guidelines as far as the fees that we collect. Feedback.
That's there. That mic has got to go.
So when we were putting all it together, we were being very conservative on the lower side of the fees collection, not on the high side.
Dr. Nick, you guys don't want to sit over here? That way you have access to the mic right here, ask questions?
Okay, see? You asked.
No, I insisted. No, I insisted, yes.
Here comes the bus.
He's going to pull one of my teeth soon, so I need to make sure I'm nice to him. I should take care of him. Kidding me?
Welcome to the party. So I think as we look at the overall,
Thinking lower than all the rest of us. Come on.
So when we look at the overall projection for revenues, I think it's the 2 years that are more comparable is if we look at the actual for 2016-17. That gives us an idea where we were before we really started seeing significant input from the cannabis projects. And we jumped up to 5.8 million, and now we look at 5.1 million. And as Craig points out, that's conservative. We'll see that coming in. It could be, at least $200,000 or $300,000 more. But at this point, it would be better to leave it at that level. And so the difference that you see between those at the 5.8 and then down to roughly 5.2 is the result of the substantial amount that was collected as we went through the round 1, 2, and 3 processes of selecting and vetting all of the applicants. And so that's the part that's not continuing. So this gives us a better figure of where we were building from going forward is the roughly $5.2 million. And as we assess, as we look at projecting where we go from here, that really becomes sort of the foundation that I think we build from where we are today. We had all hoped, you for a longer period than I certainly, that we would have seen more revenues from cannabis at this point. But right now we do have several businesses that will be bringing in by themselves, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in revenue to us as we see these come online. So one of the projections that you saw a while back was someone did a calculation on how many businesses how many square feet of growing space we'd have to have come online monthly for the next 60 months for us to finish or raise enough to be able to take care of the parcel tax. Literally, we have businesses out there that will, as they grow into maturity, individual businesses that could bring in $600,000 a year in revenue to the city. And so it's not going to be something that grows, a little bit at a time. We'll see it ramp, and then suddenly we'll start seeing significant amounts that will come in as we see that. What is evolving in the industry is probably a lesser emphasis on cultivation and a greater emphasis on manufacturing, distribution, and dispensing. That's where we will see an opportunity to be somewhat of a regional player in that process. The businesses are telling us that it makes sense to locate some of the manufacturing and distribution facilities up here because of the ease of getting in and out. These businesses do not require the same level of electricity that we see in the growing operations, and so we'll see. Certainly there will be growing operations because we have businesses, one of which I talked to today, that will be coming in with plans for their first phase of an indoor growing facility with the solar arrays being built into the process. And so we'll be seeing permits from them, designs for theirs. So we still see that growing, that being a significant element, but I think what we're going to find is that the other 3 elements of the industry are probably going to be the ones that provide a more significant portion of the revenues. So that's, I guess, the real news and the hopeful good news of what we should be able to be seeing in our general fund. And of course, as we succeed in increasing property tax, sales tax, and cannabis taxes, we then use that money to reduce in the following year the parcel taxes. And so we will be seeing hopefully a pattern that sets in hopefully as early as next year as we begin next July. But certainly in the following budget years, we should see some significant differences there so that we can in fact show the citizens that what we promise them, if this materializes, that they could start seeing that decreasing dependence upon the parcel tax and building that financial structure that we need to have in place. So any questions on revenues?
No, sir, but, well, yes, I do. Just a couple of them. On some of the things such as the motor vehicle license fees, where are we sourcing those? And the VLFs, are we going to, do we have a site that we're pulling those off of? That's for Diego? Okay.
You have to decide where we put it.
Okay. That's okay.
But yours are working, yes.
Yeah, no. Okay, I appreciate that. Those aren't estimates then. Okay, no, I don't have anything. Lady and gentlemen over here, future council members up here, any questions? Anyone else from the public? Questions? Let's move on. City council. We don't write this budget.
Okay, well, we didn't dare to write a narrative for the council. We just plugged some numbers in. But what is included in this that is a little different from last year? Obviously, the salaries are just, unfortunately, that's what we have. I think we all recognize that probably would be better if it was higher, but that's what we have right now in place. So if we drop down to the non-personnel personal services, I think we're going back to starting to build our organization, and I think we need to do it from the council up, council down, I guess. You can't go above the council, right? But yeah, from the council down, and so getting back into making sure that we are keeping up with the things we need to be aware of and dealing with it, and so putting back into this the funds that we need for books, subscriptions, to dues, participating in the organizations that we really ought to be a part of. Travel and lodging, we're substantial increase from the prior year, but taking us back to where we were in 2016-17, which will allow for the council, the new council members, to attend the what do they call it? The new council boot camp.
Mayor and council academy.
Yeah, and so they're.
And you really should open it up to. It's good for everybody to go if you have that opportunity.
Yeah,
and he should go this year because he'll be a mayor, so he'll have to take on.
I call it politician school.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's sufficient funds if all 5 council members wanted to go. It's sufficient to do that. Plus, it's sufficient for the council to attend the League of California Cities meeting, the annual meeting. Office equipment, the $8,000 is there to, as we upgrade the communications capacity in the building or in the council chambers, to provide tablets or laptops, whichever the council is more comfortable with, so that you will be accessing your agendas live through the Granicus system with all of the capability on that. And so that would be, we will present the council with some proposals on, what tools would be best for that, and then make those orders going forward. And so it would, and as we get further on, when we get to the Planning Commission, we've also, the Planning Commission would be having the same system available, because we will use the Granicus system for council, for Planning Commission, for Parks and Rec, and so we see those tools being in place. And then just continuing the office supplies. So, question?
No comment, though. On 4111-230, the travel, lodging, and registration, the actual for 2017-18 seems low. It does seem low.
Yeah, we did have.
So we might want to revisit that, because I know then that my travel this year for
we had 2
things.
council members attend the league meeting already this year.
Yeah.
And so and then the other incidental travel with.
And things that we don't get paid that are long distance that we file mileage claims for. Those, I had one that came up to, and it was a combined lots and lots of things, to around 700. So I know their travel vouchers were more than that. So we have to look at, that was many trips, by the way, not one trip for 700.
Again, this was 17-18 is closed last June 30th. So this.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Because the council did curtail travel.
You're right. I'm messed
year.
up now because the timing.
That's where we saw everything was pulled back.
All right, you're right. You're absolutely right. I stand corrected. We've just not been in this situation before, ever. Anyone from the audience, council? Okay, let's move on to your budget, sir.
And if we could pass this out to the council, it's the narrative on the council manager's budget. What we're trying to do in the narratives is highlight those things that would be significantly different, and so in the narrative it points out that the role of the council and manager, and then the responsibilities there, and the significant change that is being made in this budget, personnel-wise, is requesting to be able to change the assistant to the city manager position to an at-will confidential position with the additional compensation that would be attendant to that position, so that we can clarify that the importance of that role and being able to deal across the broad base of the things that I must deal with day to day. And so it's important that the assistant to the manager be in that same classification. And so we put into that the additional compensation there. That's the only changes in compensation at this point that you would see in the budget. So when we look at the following page, where we start going down through the detail, that's where you would see the significant difference. There is the impact of when we started this, because we started in July 1st, right? That's what we're talking about.
We should be, yeah.
Yeah, and where you go with that. And so when we look at the actual that was spent in the prior year, projecting what we're going to do going forward, you see that increase that is there. That's just simply the impact of the implementation of that increase in salary and benefits for the single position. Everything else remains the same. The effect of the cafeteria plan for the full year instead of a partial year before. Again, in 17-18, there was a period of time where we had a contract and not full-time. Questions on that?
Yeah, the transfer expenses out. Explain this real quick.
That's the allocation of the administrative overhead to the enterprise funds.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
That allows us to track it there. The
And-
other option would be to have those numbers lower, which at least this way we can see the real cost, and then we transfer out that portion to the enterprise funds.
I understand that. And then for the new folks coming on, you know a lot of this stuff, but that's going to be a consistent theme across some of the other positions that we have. So if you have any questions about that, I'm sure they'll be able to explain it to you. You're very welcome.
Maybe I'm not reading this right. For city manager's salary, for in the 4131-110 for 2017 and 2018, is it the same, or is there an increase, or what?
City manager's salary is unchanged.
Okay, so that 110 is for two salaries, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions? Gentlemen up here, audience?
So under, again, to talk, we need to be participating again at some levels that we were in the past, subscription in books, memberships. The city manager is a member of the ICMA, International City Management Association. The travel so far this year involved the League of California Cities meeting, and then some travel incidental to participating in some of the activities. And so that would carry us through those things that will need to happen through the end of the year of covering that to be able to stay actively involved in those groups that we are participating in. The vehicle allowance that the council is part of my contract is included in the compensation above. And so the vehicle operation that you see down here is the Kia that is used essentially as a pool vehicle for City Hall. We have two vehicles that are assigned to City Hall for that use. And then the remainder is the fuel with RSI, and the $500 is for the annual or the maintenance on the Kia. Cell phone bill, and then training, again part of the overall cost of travel and training. The significant reduction from last year, the $14,000 in professional services, were those fees related to the recruitment that occurred in the prior fiscal year, which were not duplicated in this, from July 1st going forward. So the real increase in the city manager's budget, if you compare back to 2016-17, at 120 to go to 121 after the allocation. And again, only 2 positions currently authorized and going forward.
Again, any questions? Anyone? Okay, let's go on to the city clerk's budget.
And you've got the narratives that you've received from the city clerk.
I do.
Okay. What we're proposing in the city clerk's office is the addition of a deputy city clerk position.
You guys have this? We got some coming. Sorry, sir. I just want to make sure that.
So we're proposing the addition of the deputy city clerk's position. When you go through the actual responsibilities, the statutory responsibilities of the city clerk, they're rather daunting. And one of the major areas of concern for us is records management. It cuts through a lot of the different things that we have, and there have been efforts in the past to get the records management, because there's 2 things. We need to make sure that the things that we need to be saving are saved and readily accessible. The things that we are not required to be keeping need to be gotten rid of and disposed of properly. And that's an ongoing process of going back many years and trying to purge those files that should no longer exist and get all of the files that we do need to keep digitized so that they're really available. And so the position of deputy city clerk would allow us to, for the first time, have sufficient staff in the city clerk's office to be able to take care of those issues, to keep the minutes up to date as we look at implementation of the Granicus system for our agendas. It's critically important that the Planning Commission is also a part of that process. And so we have, in the past, we have not, the city clerk couldn't attend Planning Commission meetings in addition to all the responsibilities. And so we would have the deputy clerk attend the Planning Commission meetings to keep the record of those so that they would be consistent all the way through the process. And so we see that as a critical element of getting caught up, staying ahead, and being responsive to the many requests that we get for records. To the extent that we can finally get these things digitized and have them readily available, the 2 things will happen. People who want to see the records will see them quicker, and they'll be accurate, and we won't be expending the same amount of time doing that if we can get these records brought up to date and going forward. In the past, we have used the administrative position in Public Works to back up the city clerk, which meant that when vacations and other issues arose, then Public Works was going without their administrative assistance over there. And so this allows us to put the right number of people in here to make that go forward. Any questions about the position?
Other than it's about time, because we've had, this clerk has, since I've been up here, has been overwhelmed with many, many requests above and beyond what's normal. And we need to get right the ship on this stuff. Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir. Oh.
I just wanted to say I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I agree.
Okay, slide the mic down to.
In the past, planning commission meetings were authenticated by a planning department member instead of a clerk, and that gives an expertise that is going to tackle some of the issues that the planning commission meets. Will the deputy city clerk be able to handle those kinds of issues?
Actually, a good question. But with this Granicus system, you're going to be capturing everything as it happens. So it's going to be real time. I don't know that there would be an interpretive issue.
Yeah, it's not, it's,
It's different than we did before.
you need to see it to understand it, and we'll see how that unfolds. But what happens now is the planning technicians, who should be focusing on the dialogue between the planning commission, the public, and that, one of them is up trying to keep track of the minutes and do that
Be at the
task.
meeting as well.
Yeah, and they will be there too. So their time will be spent interacting with the commission and the audience and making the presentations on the various issues coming to the planning commission, rather than managing the flow of the agenda and the minutes. And so what we'll see then is that when you log on the city's website and you pull out you want to look at the pending city council agenda, you'll pull it down, and then you'll go to planning commission and you'll pull one down, and they'll look very similar. The content will be different, but the mechanism will be very similar, and we'll have that continuity. And again, the great advantage of this automated system is that literally within a few hours after the completion of a meeting, the minutes are done. You go through, the clerk will go through and finish inserting the text that is necessary for the actual motions made by the council or the planning commission, and put them in, and then people can look at, read, and listen to what went on in the planning commission within a few hours of the planning and council being completed.
Another thing that we've needed to move into the 21st century on.
And so as we go down to the non-personal services, we find out, of course, that's not free.
No.
And so we talked to the council. We've already gone through the process of the council authorizing us to purchase that software and move forward. And so the cost of doing that is in here. You know, we still need to do the necessary advertising of public meetings and all of those things. And so that continues. The codification service, we continue to do that. We need to get, again, plan the clerk and the new position trained. There are excellent opportunities through the league for our city clerk to get back involved, more actively involved in what's going on in the profession throughout the state. And so we see those services added as you go down through there. When we get down to the records management, again, that allows us to really get actively involved in getting these records brought up to date. And then the election expense of the $62,000 is what we will have spent by the end of June 30th on the elections. Which brings up a question in my mind right now. We're charging the public safety or the parcel tax funds for these elections.
We did for the major amount. We have two outstanding with the county this last election.
Okay, and so this is the municipal election.
This will be the municipal
council
election.
seats,
And
yeah.
then there also will be a fee for when they verified signatures for ours, so we could also split that for public safety. They're very unsure of the amount that they will charge for that. You know, back in the day when we consolidated, it was a $9,000 election. The election this time, they base it on how many registered voters, and I'm afraid that even the regular election consolidated is probably close to 30 now. So it'll be at least 30,000. It's huge. It's really, yeah, it's creeped up probably the last 6 to 8 years to that amount.
Wow.
Okay, and we're looking at, we would need computer and terminals for the added position
And desk.
and desk.
Yeah, I just got to,
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I was looking at some other stuff on here, so I don't know. On the PERS unfunded, why is that zero?
Because we paid that up front.
On the, when we just did, okay.
So in the following fiscal year, we'll see that again, but for this
Yeah.
year, we already paid.
Okay, and in reference to 4132-241 office supplies, is that going to be enough? Hello?
1,500
Yeah.
for paper clips? Yes.
Well, there's gonna, if we're gonna have two people in there, is that gonna be enough?
It's going to be digitizing a lot of things, too.
I anticipate it'll be fine.
All right. I'm good.
So we can't force you to take any more?
Mm, you- Okay.
Okay.
Do you all have any questions? Okay. All right. Now we're turning to the city attorney.
Thank you, council.
Well, where is he?
You are welcome.
I talked to Christian earlier today. He was here for our staff meeting today, and so I assured him that I would represent him well for the council.
Well, you just cut his budget incredibly right here.
Yeah, I'm thinking we could really get by at 25,000 if we could. There you go. Anyway, these are, as you know,
Have a sheet on this? You don't have a summary sheet on this?
no.
Okay.
It's, sometimes I have a hard time explaining what the city attorney's supposed to do. But anyway, there's no changes in the contract that we have that is in place. And to a great extent, the figures we put in at the beginning of a fiscal year are placeholders rather than, because we don't know what's going to evolve. And so we're hoping that things are slowing down to the point that we might start seeing some moderation in these expenses. But in all likelihood, it's possible that between now and June, something else could come up. But at this point, he's comfortable with these projections, and so we'll see what actually evolves. When we get contacted, we have to respond. And so what we're hoping for is, as we have filled some of the critical positions in the city, is that we will be contacting the city attorney's office less often, that as we train our people, particularly in planning, as we get that up to speed with the people we have in place, then it should not be necessary to have as much input there. And so across the board, the goal that I know Christian has and that I do is to a greater extent make sure that we're training our people, reassuring them, giving them boilerplate kind of tools to work with, so that it's not necessary to have the city attorney's office respond to every issue. Much of it should be routine, and to the extent that we can do that, we should see these numbers going down. I think the council in the past has discussed with us, and we've discussed about, at what point would it make sense for us to have an attorney on staff. I think at this point that would be premature, but hopefully over the next few years we might see an opportunity that would make sense to have an attorney on staff and then a contract behind that as needed, much as we're examining right now as we've gone out to the market to see what we can do for a city engineer, if it would be possible for us to bring our own, have an engineer in-house backed up by the contracts instead of a contract for all engineering services. Unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of progress on that at this point, but we haven't given up.
That said, it still seems like it's kind of low, considering that what could happen in legal services and litigation. But if you're comfortable with this, council, y'all are going to have to.
Seems low to me also.
Well, it would not be irresponsible to add $100,000 there. That gives us a cushion to.
I would prefer you do that, especially in the litigation side. It doesn't really matter where you plug it in, but that's what seems to be the driver of a lot of this.
Okay, well, let's do that then.
When you said that Christian said that the figure was good, what did he base that on? On current events?
The current workloads that we're seeing right now, because we've gone through a very intense period on a lot of the cannabis stuff, and we had some litigation that has been resolved, and so that's where his feeling was, that he felt like that was much closer to where we should be. But again, it makes sense if we're holding, having this maybe a little higher than reality. That means we're not going to have a shock down the road. So,
Okay.
because we just don't know. as extensive as our operation is, it's, you know, when somebody files a claim, we've got to respond, and that starts the clock running whenever.
I made a note that it was a conservative estimate too, so I was thinking along the same lines.
You think the full council should vote on that rather than just to say to put it at 100,000 more?
Yeah, I think that should be.
So do we need a motion?
That's what we wanted to do, is it's where we made changes, we needed to be sure the council was on board, so I would suggest a motion to do that.
Make a motion then, this is for litigation for city attorney for FY 2018, 2019, proposed from 100,000 to 200,000. That's the motion.
I second it.
Roll call, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember McGuire?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Stump? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Gomez?
Yes.
Mayor Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I lost track of it there.
Okay. So I've dog-eared that one, so we'll look for a change page to come in for that. Flipped it over. Anybody have any questions?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Ibanez.
Let's go to finance. Ding, ding, ding. No.
Sorry.
Did you give some to Ben?
No, I think I gave that was stacked to Denise.
Thank you.
Can I start?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just wanted to reiterate what the mission statement of the California City Finance Department is to provide sound business, financial, and risk management support to internal and external customers, ensuring continuation of public services to the residents, visitors, and businesses of California City through the protection of financial resources. One of the changes that Bob and I have discussed in the department has been sort of the staffing level, and that has been something of discussion the last few weeks. And if you look on the table that I provided in the narrative, you'll see that the finance director budget, some of these positions have already been filled, but we are reducing the budget analyst position by a quarter.
Well, you're going from full-time to 75%?
We're eliminating the position.
Okay.
We're proposing to eliminate the position.
So how do you,
So the position we're funding 75% of the position, not 100.
Right.
okay.
So the position would be eliminated at the end of March.
So then your proposed total would be 0, not 0.75, right?
Right.
Okay. So does that affect any numbers anywhere?
Well, no, it would be through the end of June.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
At that level.
okay.
So it would not reappear in the next year's budget.
Early next year, say around February, March, when y'all start putting this exercise together, it's going to reflect that. Okay.
The other staffing changes that happened in the recent weeks has been accounting, a full-time accountant. We are looking a utility supervisor, account clerks, and utilities, and other to help support the window and the other duties involved with the finance department. Overlooking or just reviewing some of the positions, that has been sort of the major cost in the department. We are also looking at some of the personnel costs in terms of subscriptions, getting everyone trained, getting them to conferences, getting them up to speed on what they should be doing, how they should be doing their job sort of more adequately and straightforward. We've allocated or have budgeted for that kind of training to bring everyone up to speed. In terms, the other thing that I noticed in the department was that we do have antiquated equipment. It would be great to have a laptop sort of at council meetings to update numbers and present and whatnot. Also, it'd be great to have other stuff that I've discovered in other departments. A shredder, a cross shredder would be great. I'd see a lot of sort of floating banking sensitive information that should be taken care of sort of in a better manner. Just sort of more infrastructure for the department to kind of help us compete on that sort of where we should be in terms of technology.
You don't have a shredder now?
I think there is a shredder, but I think it's just
You
sort
think there's
It's not an industrial shredder.
Right.
For like an office, it might be a little over the garbage can.
Correct.
Wow.
Well,
Better, but it's awful.
I have never seen it, so you got it hidden well. I just know that when I worked up at the lab, I had one behind me that was this by this. It could be a wood chipper, but you put documents like this, staples and all, and binders and all.
Correct.
It ate everything.
It's not a viable one for actually shredding financial documents.
But if we could get a big one like that, then we could rent it out and make money.
No.
Rent it out.
Charging
No, we
people.
just had a lot of documents that were sensitive, that's
Oh,
all.
it's just,
Diego, that's good you're doing that.
Excellent.
DRMO has them surplus all the time.
we should get one.
In any case, we're looking at your, you're not going to have any overtime at all.
Yeah,
That's, you have had that in the past. You feel like your sufficient staffing is going to cover that?
No, I'm going to have to review that number.
Okay. And because you're paying people tonight,
Right.
so that's not going to change. So if you could maybe come back with something for us on this, dog-ear that page.
and the PERS unfunded, that's also been paid? Okay.
Because they would tell us what that unfunded liability is at this point. That doesn't mean we're not going to ever see an unfunded liability. We'll see this again because it's a Ponzi scheme.
When we got the bill, and we brought it to the council and said, okay, if we pay it right now, we get a discount.
Right.
That's what we did.
No, I get that. And we did the right thing there. Absolute right thing.
It will be back.
Yeah, this is just the way the system operates or fails to operate.
And,
What's your professional services that you have here? I'm sorry, Chuck.
No,
I
go
didn't
ahead,
mean to
go
walk
ahead.
on you.
No.
Non-personal non-personal services. Isn't that non-personnel?
Professional
Did
services.
we globally change that? That's personnel services?
Can I bring up a silly question?
Yeah, you-
I realize the PERS unfunded liability, we paid it. It was $1 million, I believe, something dollars, but
$1,500,000.
that still is a distribution between departments because we did budget for it within all our departments. So it still is a cost. So it really should be in here because it was an expense.
Well, we pay per, should there not be two
Well,
lines?
that's what I mean. It still was paid.
Yeah.
So this is already a paid event because we're halfway through the year. So it's not that we're budgeting next year. We're actually budgeting.
Let's
last
bring
year
that back
this
for
year.
you. We'll do the accounting on it.
Sure.
How it should be.
Because I did have
clearly
numbers.
It was distributed amongst all the departments.
Yeah.
I think it was the timing of when the payment was made.
Yeah.
Because remember, it was in,
It was 3 months ago or
June?
it was in June before
July?
the end of the last fiscal
No,
year. Was it
yeah.
July? Okay, well, we'll bring that accounting back, and it may result in plugging these figures back in through here.
Okay, should we also be looking at the PERS and the PERS unfunded under separate lines? You're paying into PERS on a monthly basis.
We are, yeah. So if you look up above, your PERS unfunded liability, the retirement
Okay,
is the number.
it's PERS. Okay, just
That's-
note to
That's
self.
PERS.
And there's no buyback for sick or vacation in the department?
You don't have apartments, they've been here long enough.
They haven't been here long enough, yeah.
We got so many new people,
Okay.
you know.
But
you probably have
The
to
reason I took the mic
antici-
back is the question on the professional services. When we went through the transition from recruiting for a
I got
finance
it.
director,
Yeah.
We paid a temporary firm for that, and then we paid the fee for the recruiting fee. And so that's what those figures are, is that earlier in the year we were still paying the a consulting firm to handle those things, and those will not be showing up in the following year.
Got it. Okay. And we don't anticipate this year, because I got to keep telling myself this is July to now, through June of next year, that the audit fees won't increase as
We've
they
already got
continue
the-
to march through the audit, if you have other areas that you're going to ask them to audit?
That figure is based on what they've already given us
Okay.
as the fee, because they're already in the
Into it.
process of going through.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. What's that?
Legal services?
They used to parse that out between departments. And we probably still should do that.
Because usually I thought what they.
Each department
I had a
covers
little-
the burden.
Yeah, had a little bit of money in there just in case.
Right.
So I guess when we bring it back, then we can address
Well,
it.
I guess what we got to find out is why we allocated it to in 17-18, because we didn't the year before. So I need to clarify
Well,
what.
the reason why we did that is so that each of the departments that had a burden on the legal fees would cover that portion of the legal fees. So in other words, it came out of their budgets. If they generated legal activity, it came out, it was like a true job cost accounting type setup. That department paid for those services, so that's where it was booked. That's why we did that.
Okay, we'll work on
You
bringing
might-
that back before
okay.
we finish up here. Not here tonight, before we finish.
No, I understand. So you'll have to come back to us on that. Y'all have any questions? Questions? Questions?
Good.
Questions? Thank you very much. Let's move on to treasurer.
The treasurer's position is part of the municipal code, required that we have that. Our treasurer is elected independently and has the duties that are specified in the ordinance. In meeting with the treasurer and going over those elements of the job that required to do, we ended up calculating that he's actually getting paid less than half of minimum wage for the time that it takes to do those things that his responsibilities require. And so we're suggesting an increase of $200 a month, so from $200 to $400 a month, which is still a pretty moderate cost for the services received. We think that this comes closer to compensating the time that is put in, and is there simply as a recommendation to do that. The treasurer's salary is simply set by the council. It's not, as the council is aware, that you can't adjust the council's salary for a sitting council. The treasurer's salary is independent of that process. Council sets it and can change it at any time. So that's
Mr.
the
Stockwell,
only-
do we know at 400 what the hourly wage would be on that?
It should be bringing it in closer to $15 an hour is where we would be. And my encouragement to him is that if he gets more, not to expand his time, but to just continue to do those things that are essential to the job. As you know, Keith will do other things as he's here, and we're just encouraging him to not take this as a sign that he needs to spend more time than to feel like he needs to do that for the justification of the additional money.
I would say that even 400 is extremely low for the amount of work he does. Every time I'm here, he's here. He's always at the bank or doing a lot of other things that I would recommend that at least 500, if not more.
I don't have a burden with it.
Okay. I'd like to make that motion then that we raise it to 500.
I second.
Well, let's discuss what he does too, in that capability, because now you're pricing him out of the council.
Well, and I think there's no question that the council puts in more hours. I mean, it's just the nature of the job. When we look at, he ran for the office knowing what it pays, but certainly at $500 a month, it's still not a very high hourly rate for the time that he puts in. So I don't know whether, and that's why I leave it. We put this out here for discussion. The council really needs to handle this.
And Mr. Stockwell, you and I have talked about, other people here have recommended that the council get more, but the council has said that they shouldn't get more. So we voted that down every time. So paying Mr. Middleton a fraction of what $500 a month to me is, he's definitely doing $500 worth of work. And that's not to say that we up here aren't, but we voted ourselves not to give ourselves an increase in salary.
Well, you have to understand why we did that, too. I think you understand why we did that, right?
Well, I understand, but I think that more people would run for office if, and I've talked to Mr. Stockwell about this, I think more people would run for office if there are several of us up here who don't need the money, but there are some people who would run for office if it was like $1,000 a month and $1,500 a month for mayor. And again, as I met with Mr. Stockwell and we talked about the difference, it's not a significant amount of money to pay a council that amount of money. And then that way you would get people who aren't necessarily wealthy or who are financially able to run for mayor. You would get other people running for mayor and for city council. So,
well, I'm not wealthy, but I didn't run this. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard plenty. But this is a public service to the community. That's how I've always
More
looked at
people
it.
would run also if they could quit getting excoriated on Facebook.
Exactly. How about them apples?
Yeah, I'd have no problem with the increase for Keith. I mean, he's very punctual, very, very reliable, good at what he does. Did you second that?
yes, I did.
You did.
So the motion is to raise him to 500, correct?
That's correct.
Madam Mayor?
I'm sorry. I was writing a note.
I'd like to call the attention to the fact.
Turn your mic on.
Karen Macedonio. When you're talking about the reimbursement for the treasurer and for the city council and for the mayor, you're not talking about individual people and jobs. You're talking about position. And if I understand this correctly, none of the people that are seated can participate in any kind of an increase. So this is actually, other than the treasurer, this is actually a future decision to put our city in a better place. And I would really like to have you have this as a public discussion where there could be weigh-in, because I know a lot of the residents that I've talked to have said we really need to do something about it. And it's not about, there's no benefit to the 5 of you sitting there. The benefit is for the future of the people that could potentially be there. So I think this is a bigger conversation.
But we're for that, yes, but we're on the treasurer, not the council right now.
But I don't.
We have to bring that back later.
I don't know that one can be discussed without the other.
Yeah, because you can, because his is set by council.
Public comment
Yeah.
is saying I don't know that you can discuss one without the other. There are 6 elected offices. The mayor, 4 council people, and the treasurer are all elected offices.
And the treasurer doesn't vote.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So, do we need to roll call this?
Yeah, you would have to roll call it if you've got a what's the new number here?
500.
6,000.
No, yeah, it's not 4,800, it's 6,000. Thank you. So will that also change, that will also change your Medicare and your retirement and these other things. So we will have to make those adjustments as well. So. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember McGuire?
Yes.
Paris?
Yes.
Stump?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gomez?
Yes.
Mayor Wood?
Sure.
Motion carried.
Going on to Human Resources and Risk Management.
Do we have the cover sheet for that? Does it have 3 holes in it?
All right.
The principal changes in HR are the ones that I've suggested, so I guess it's best for me to lead out, and Mary can jump in if I misrepresent it. HR is an area where we have continued to put increased demands without putting any resources in place to deal with them. And so when we think about an organization our size, in addition to the HR functions is the risk management functions. And so we feel that it's critically important to insert 2 elements into this process. One, our human resources generalist position should be a position that is exempt and not represented because it is a confidential position. This is the person that is most directly involved with the HR issues. And the payroll generalist also should be an exempt position because they deal with all of the personnel matters of the individual employees and the various bargaining units. And so those would be the changes to add the human resources specialist and to take what is currently the payroll clerk, call it a payroll generalist position, and make it a confidential position. And so that's what's built into the proposal before the council. And Mary can talk about in general the other issues.
Well, Bob has explained here very well on how we actually do need assistance in the Human Resources Department. It would help us to actually catch up with many programs that we have not been able to do. We are in the middle of trying to automate our payroll system, timekeeping system. That takes time and effort. We have a tracking system attached to Cassell that if we had the manpower, we could actually download documents, all our employee documents, to their file electronically. It would eliminate quite a bit of paper, but it would also give us the ability to take a look at one employee and look at their entire history with the city rather than have to dig through several documents. So the other issue here is we need to update our policies, and because they've not been updated for a while, but it is quite an effort to do so, and it will take manpower to make that happen. So the person that, even if we hired someone to update policies for us, to work with us, I would still need to spend a great time of my time working with whoever we hire to update the city's policies. And so as I look through the city, we have job descriptions that we have changed over the years, but we've never completed a master plan to look at the jobs that we actually need in the city versus all of the jobs we have on record that we may not be using anymore. So there's quite a bit that we can do. I'm not saying it'll happen overnight because hiring a person also needs training. And same as our city clerk, the HR documents, we actually need to have record retention for all HR documents because it's similar to the city clerk's documents. They have a lifespan. Some you keep for a longer period of time. Others you can destroy at a certain point in time. So with that, I'm hoping that this council will consider the changes we want to make in the Human Resources Department. And as I go through our normal other services, there hasn't been any changes to the services such as subscription, advertising. If we go down to special projects is the only change with the 30,000, and this is to assist with the writing of the personnel policies. So we may be able to get funding or monies from PARSAC, but we also need to put in money to make this happen. So we actually looked at a firm recommended by PARSAC, but the cost is like $350 an hour. Yes, and that's for an attorney to work on our policies. And so this is why you see the $30,000. So that's the only major financial, other than adding the workforce. It's the, yeah. Yeah, oh yes, and for advertising, because advertising is expensive, and with the way we're recruiting now, we're going to be recruiting constantly for a while. And so we're using as many advertising places as possible that's cheap, like Indeed, putting it on the city's post, on the city's website, fire department's website. But they're occasionally with higher positions and more critical positions, we need to advertise in a newspaper. So this would help to offset the costs. Any questions?
I just got a couple. Would that not change then? I'm assuming the unfunded, again, was already paid. But all that's going to be changing.
All of them. So if we allocate $1 million back into each of the departments, we'll make that change wherever it shows up. So
Okay.
before next Thursday, you'll be able to see that, the effect of that.
Okay, and professional services, that's going to be 4145 310.
The professional services that were here, that was included in 1617, was actually when I was working.
Oh.
Contractor.
Okay.
And so at this time, we don't see a need to
Yeah.
add.
Okay, and also what about 311 for legal services?
I think you have to go through all of them.
So we need to do the same, add legal services to that department.
Unless it's, that's hard to tell because I don't know if that wasn't absorbed from the basic, I don't know. Each department that has the HR covers that, so you wouldn't need them. That's right, I do, thank you for asking that, because we didn't charge you, your department, for that, because the departments that had the legal issues that went through HR paid for that.
Right, exactly.
Police, fire, public work, whomever.
All right,
whomever.
so we're good.
I think so. I think so. And the special projects are what you were talking about with the 30,000.
Yes.
Okay.
That's not an optional project.
Oh.
PARSAC is demanding that we update our personnel rules and regulations as a condition of continuing the insurance.
Wow, okay. You have any questions? No? Gentlemen? Okay. Then the next one is city contracts. Do we have anything on city contracts? Special pay, thank you, Mary, very much. You'll be coming to us, by the way, with job descriptions for these positions. Okay.
Okay, the city contracts, the significant difference you see there is that in 17-18, $250,000 was toward golf course TDS contracts. We were paying $140,000. We settled that whole issue. And so by the end of June, that's how much has been spent. And so right now, we don't have anything else pending there other than because we have the golf course now budgeted in Public Works, and we'll get to that when we get there. So for this year, it's done. The 250 closed out last year, and the golf course will show up as a separate entity going forward.
Okay, so we won't be doing that tonight? Okay, because there are some things we need to bring up about the golf course for sure, and the airport for sure.
That's where we're looking at the golf course going forward as an enterprise fund.
Right.
That's where Craig will be bringing those up as we meet tomorrow night.
Okay, very good. Very well. Could you explain other contracts for those of us that need an update?
Okay, go through it. I'm sorry. Let me catch up.
Okay, that's all right.
A significant change here is in prior years, we had funded $15,000 to the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce. This last year, EDC did not bill us for any services, and in discussions with the chairman, they've concluded that probably it's better to disband and for the city to put its eggs into one basket instead of trying to fund two efforts for economic development. And so the proposal here is that we would fund Chamber of Commerce at $30,000, and we would look to them then to carry the economic development load for the city, which will be consistent with the newly funded position for East Kearns economic development that will go into effect in January. So that's the change that we would see here is moving them there. The other contracts that we got.
Let's be very, very quiet.
With another contract is we have fees with U.S. Bank for some of the custodian accounts. When I reviewed this account, 4151-633, we have certain fees in there payable to U.S. Bank, which I think is our custodian. But I will research that and come back with more detail on it.
Okay, so there may be an increase there. Okay, but where you left off on the East Kern Economic Diversification Plan, that is a recommendation within that first phase to consolidate. And that was not just for California City, it was for all cities to consider.
One benefit of consolidating it is that we will be able to make office space available, which was one of the in-kind matches for that grant. And so this would allow us, since the EDC would not be using the office space, then it would be available to be as the match for the grant.
Right, and that's perfect.
And the chamber is in the process of xeriscape the front of their building. That's been one of the areas we pay the water bill. It's a couple $1,000s a year, and so their effort to be able to have that done with their own volunteer services to xeriscape that front instead of that very green area that seems inconsistent with where we're at. So that ultimately will save the city a couple $1,000s a year on a water bill that we pay now.
Very good. I don't see Gavia in here. Okay, well, KEDC sits outside. It's identified separately. And other contracts, yeah. No, I get that, but what I'm telling you is that KEDC is another economic tool, and it's got its own line item, so does the AV Board of Trade. Maybe what we need to do is isolate Gavia as well.
We'll pull that out.
Please, because we need visibility on where our funds are going in that direction.
That's easily done.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It's the vehicle that we pay for, the vehicle cost, don't we? I mean, we don't pay for Meals on Wheels. I'm not sure what this is.
I'm not sure what it was, but it was, no one's made a request for anything. I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah, maybe what we should do is go back and look at the actuals and let us know what kind of demands were placed on that, and we'll be able to make a better decision about that. without it, if there is any. Because
there's some need for support, I think we certainly should consider it.
Right. I think what we have been doing, we don't pay the people that are at the center. We don't pay the volunteers. We do not pay mileage to volunteers. We have that vehicle, the old PD, the white PD vehicle, that's been limped along for people to drive and deliver meals, but most of us travel in our own vehicles. So I don't really know.
Maintenance. I think the only thing we budget is a little bit of money for maintenance.
Okay,
on the vehicle.
let's find out what that is, because we do the maintenance in-house for most of that, don't we? Okay, if we could find out, that might help us make a better decision. And then web services, we have I see a bump in that. And that is on 4151-642. So Bob, what is that?
We've got to get back to you on that, I'm sorry.
Okay, because it seems, first off, we need to get the web pages updated more frequently, and we can't have people wearing 17, 18, 20 hats. So we need to look at that to keep this synergy going with the improvement of information getting out to our community.
And there's a recommendation on that further on in the budget.
Okay. Okay. CalPERS fiscal fees. That's paid under.
I'm not sure why we have it here, but it's just a.
Those are the maintenance fees.
So they don't, instead of trying to allocate $2,700 through line items.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? You look like you got a question. Comments? Yes, ma'am?
Karen Macedonio, Public has a question. If I remember correctly, in the East Kern Economic Development Plan, there was a recommendation for a fairly expensive software customer relationship program to be shared between the city and the chamber or whoever it was. And it's there, I would have to go look at it, but it was part of what would take to have people accessing the knowledge of who was being talked to.
For what?
It's in the development plan. For part of what the city would be was the software plan that was customer relationship management that was shared between whoever was working in the office, the chamber, or the EDC at that time, and the city, and the position that we have coming for 2 years. But it was about $10,000. It was a fair amount of money.
Yeah, though that is probably going to have to be something worked through the county to determine if we're going to continue to do that as a part of the development and the execution of the plan. Because right now, there's been, since they haven't started, and it's a 2-year, and we're trying to find ways to extend that, but it's going to be writing other grants to make that extend. We have to see our success. And hopefully it'll go well. So I don't think that's going to be from something Jump Street that we'd start into before we even started the position. And the position doesn't start till January, and we don't know what their expectations are going to be.
But it is at this point still in the grant.
Yeah.
But it always would have been an expense by the county, not interrelated with us. Our contribution for the grant is the match of an office space. So that's the only involvement.
And I'll go back and look at that again, because that doesn't ring a bell with me. And I was pretty close to that. So thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, anyone up here have any questions about the city contracts? But before we move on to that, Craig, when you bring back a TDS, is it going to be the maintenance of the course only, or is it going to be, the enterprise fund concept?
Right now, being that As you well know, we had very little information and history to carry forward as far as costs and operations. So the budget that I've put together right now is literally just the city. We received quotes for outside contract for services under a myriad of different scenarios of how they would operate, whether it's a piece of it, a couple of pieces of it, or the entire thing, including the restaurant. So we have those costs.
So we'll get to those
So
into
we can
more.
talk about those. But right now, the budget, as far as city is that I've put in, is literally just to carry us through operationally from June or July
To June.
through this year. And we're researching all the time things that need to be done.
Got it.
Brenda has been working on facets, so it's actually numbers that I've put together with Brenda's help as far as her part of the operation.
Thank you.
And just to get it back in a more playable condition, which I think we've already now have got there. So we've been getting a lot of compliments. We're working on the sand traps and those parts of the course, and I think you can see that on CCB and areas that haven't been touched for a long time. So
Okay, thank you. We look forward to going through
good
that.
progress.
Yeah, you definitely are. We'll talk more about that later. Anything else on city contracts? Going. Moving into data processing.
Data processing, we worked that out today, and then we failed to plug in. I'm recommending that we put that we hire an IT specialist. We have a contract with Code 3. We have a contract with other companies to deal with elements of that. I think we're to the point now where it is a full-time job. And I apologize that we didn't get the numbers up here for the personal services. But what's recommended is that beginning, probably as soon as we can do a recruitment, which means, probably within the next 90 days, to bring someone on as an IT specialist who would take over all of the issues that we currently have contracted out, so that we have somebody available in the city every day working on all of the different IT operations that go on. And that's where, when we look at web services, then we have someone that can actually work on the full gamut of what is involved there. And so we'll bring back to you tomorrow the numbers on what that would be. And so included in here in the contracts right now are the contracts of what it would carry us through the end of June. Our contract with Cassell for our financial management software is to take care of that. The Granicus system at $10,000, that's our annual membership fee, or our annual operating fee for the software. And then the contract labor is the contract we have for IT services through Code 3. And that contract has some dates in it, so we would look toward terminating that contract when we in fact had somebody on board ready to go from there. And so we don't know at what point that would occur. The upgrades of the equipment, this is where we'll be paying for to $7,500, which is the one-time cost for bringing the Granicus system in and bringing it up, as well as addressing the overall impact of the systems that we'll be bringing on in place there. So this budget would go up. Again, it will flex based on how long we would keep the contract labor in place and when we would bring on the employees. So we'll give you those numbers tomorrow that will show the impact of that before we would expect you to make a decision on that. But we are confident that this is a full-time job at this point for us.
So we would then be looking to remove ourselves from the Code 3 side of it and then just relying on this individual.
Right, and we would hire someone who would then be certified to do all of the things with the Department of Justice, so that we'd be focusing all of those things.
Wait a minute, are we talking about just the city or law enforcement?
We're talking about everything. The entire operation, top to bottom.
Okay.
And this was also with the recommendation of the police chief. to move forward with this.
One thing you really need to make sure that they have their CCNA, their A+, their Network Plus, their CompTIA Security Plus. There's a bunch of certs that they need to have, about 5 of them. And if they have those 5, then they can do it by themselves pretty easily.
And that's our goal, and if we're successful in finding someone that can either do all of that or be trained so that they can get those qualifications, then we'll proceed. If we can't, then we'll continue to contract.
There's a bunch of them at Edwards.
What do you anticipate the cost will be?
That's, let me give it to you tomorrow. We worked out the numbers, and we should have had them here, but they're not there. But it's a position, on an annual basis, it's a position that will be in the $55,000 to $60,000 base wage plus benefits. To get us through the end of the year, it would be a quarter going through there.
It's going to cost more.
Yeah.
You won't get anybody close to that.
What are we paying now annually? What's the, because I don't have that.
We're paying $30,000 for the contract labor with Code 3.
Okay.
If they have those certificates, they make quite a bit more than what you're talking about.
And
Okay,
we'll
so
take a look
we'll
at that
soon
and
find out.
Upgrade that before we bring it back to you.
if, and, you know, barring anybody that has questions, why don't we just delay this till tomorrow when we have more data?
Yeah.
Anybody have any concerns with that? Okay.
And then if we can get maybe an average of what we've been paying total for Code 3. Yeah, full wrap rate, because we've been taking, well, never mind. Yeah.
But we also have to be.
Yeah. That,
Yeah, we'll talk about it more, but we have to be careful how this gets manipulated.
Yep.
Okay, moving into general fund utilities.
We actually have some good news in this one. The postage and shipping, why are we pulling that in now? Seem to remember why we're bringing the 5,000 in on that. While they're gathering that, the electricity, we're projecting, if you'll remember, we entered into an agreement with GES for the construction of the solar farm. To see the end result should be, as we went through the contract, $100,000 a year less than we have been spending. And so this is, we're starting to see, you know, some of the impacts of that going forward. That actually went into effect roughly July 1st. And so the bills that we're seeing, you know, going forward, so far we haven't seen an actual accounting on those, but the billing handoff between, what this is a large-scale power purchase agreement like you would have on your home, but this is for 2.5 megawatts, and so it's the handoff between SCE and the company has not been completed to the point that we've got a report we can give to you, but we're starting to see the reductions in electrical.
Just to add to that, hopefully through Michelle I can get an updated, which she does a running month-to-month total, 12-month running program on all city electrical accounts. So hopefully when they actually start posting this stuff, and we've been working with her to get this thing finished, we will receive credit all the way back. And we're starting to see that. So when I get that actual spreadsheet and it shows the month-to-month, hopefully I'll bring that and we'll see what the impact is of that.
Thank you.
And then the others are just simply continuing. We're examining our landline process, as we talked, you know, the council talked about needing to upgrade our phone system. One of the advantages of upgrading that is that we should be able to eliminate essentially the landline fees and have a much more responsive system. Craig can give you more information on that.
Yeah, we've requested 2 quotes. I'm about ready to kill the one because I cannot get an actual quote out of them from Frontier. So Verizon will probably be the one I'm going to bring to council. The cost of the equipment, it's coming almost nothing, and the landlines don't exist because we won't be using landlines. The numbers will roll over from the existing system, so we'll keep everything in place. And it is literally a wireless system tied right in to their trunk system next door. So the bandwidth required is, I mean, it's off the scale. I haven't ever seen something. Gene and I have talked about that and what the probably where we will go as far as the contract, but Verizon seems to be where we're going to be heading as far as phone service.
There's just one thing. VoIPs are much better, but if you lose your internet or lose your connection, then you're pretty much done. But that's life. But it's so much faster and better.
Yeah, and what we're looking at this versus what we have now, they're not even on the same page. So reliability, because of their backup and how they have their system, we would have to, I mean, the odds of losing telephone, somebody's going to have to wipe out Verizon to do that. So it's...
Okay. Water service seems improved.
Yeah, we've been paying a lot of money to water the golf course in Central Park, and so we have since last June been terminating our connections to the city's water system, and ultimately those will all be eliminated. But to get us through this takes care of us through the end of June. So going forward in next year, that number should be only those services like City Hall.
Potable water.
Yeah, potable water.
Because you're going to use tertiary for everything else.
Yeah.
Well, what we'll use, what I'm bringing forward to you guys is we've got the quotes finalized. I'm working on the report, so hopefully that will come at the only meeting we have in December with authorization to actually put in an ag well, which will tie in to the sewer facility, and we will actually transfer all the water through the lake still and through controls that we will use non-potable water off of an ag well associated with the golf course, the Parks and Rec Department, to move it off of the actual system. So the cost of that, I'm working on the numbers. Roughly, pumping costs is what we will incur, so we won't really have a whole lot of infrastructure. The cost of the well is roughly going to be in the $425,000 to $450,000 range. And the actual pumping costs are going to be somewhere around 40 cents per kgal, which is 1,000 gallons. So I'll have some more numbers operationally, which will tie just to that facility of operation.
Location of the well?
It's going to be back behind the senior center between there and if you know where the old little hill is, where the little park used to be, it's right below that. So it's right where we have existing power facilities and pump stations now. So we've already met with Edison back there. There's available power there. We don't have to do any Edison upgrades. All we have to do is update our panel.
Thank you.
And that's all included in the quote to do that.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Did you have any more to add to this before I open questions? Anyone have any questions? Up here? Okay. Insurance.
So this is where we pay our liability insurance annually. The difference you see reflected there is allocating the costs through the enterprise funds and other operations of the city. So this is the general funds portion of our liability insurance going forward, or through the end of this year, fiscal year. So it looks like in 17-18 a decision was made to pay it all in one place, and prior to that it had been allocated, so we're going back to the process of allocating it.
Okay. As long as we have some sort of historical comment somewhere, I mean, for auditors, for us, for staff to know that we did this, we didn't do it, we did it, we didn't do it, that kind of things.
Yeah, that would
And
be
maybe in our financial policy guide, why we would put certain things in certain categories. It's just a suggestion. It'll help for the graybeard knowledge down the road when somebody's looking back at our 5-year and 10-year plans that everybody wants. That would be helpful to know. Anyone from the public have any questions? Are you folks up here? Okay. Now we're going into, I'm thinking this sheet is that says facilities and grounds. Is that tonight or tomorrow? Because next to it is facilities maintenance.
So this is the general fund portion?
Yeah. Is this the, okay.
Yeah. So
Yep,
we-
it is.
Yeah.
I think. The summary sheet? I'm talking about the summary sheet. City owned, yep, there you go. There we go. You didn't get that one either? Okay. Okay.
Nick, do you have those?
You have them? Oh, they need, yeah. Okay. So, who would like to take that? I see.
That'll be Craig.
Okay, Tag, you're it.
So, facility and grounds, what I actually look at on the sheet, it's a little bit different. So we have currently 7 positions that I believe are approved. And what I think is not actually on the sheet is the maintenance work institute, which was approved through the Housing Corporation, which is part of the facilities and grounds, and it doesn't show up in the information. And so we're really not changing a whole lot. We're pretty much, I think, keeping it the same. With the 7 people, there's 1 position change. Reclass is what basically I'm only requesting from a maintenance worker 1 to maintenance worker 2. Bodies will stay the same.
And the addition of the janitor's position.
And the addition of the janitor, so there is an additional position that also was approved, but those are all non-filled, so those are currently being flown.
But it nets out at 7. It's 7 positions, any way you slice it, okay.
Just a question, I think it's a typo. There's no Siri or, it's a senior? For the second.
Typo.
Okay. No. No, I just want.
You're right, there's no serious, so he is pretty serious, but.
Okay, and it looks like you have some projects and objectives that are coming up.
So what I did was.
And that's medians, yeah, with an N.
Put it blunt, there has to be a jack of all trades, and something we did when Carlos gave me the landscape report of the city's operation, graciously. We've done a lot of projects as far as trees, working on the mediums. We're going to continue to work on the mediums. There's a project that I know wants to be completed this winter, which would be the next phase down by Ace Hardware. To continue with that kind of desert-scape format, which actually looks really good and it's filling in very nicely. We have upgrades we're working on for City Hall, which is replacing the glass in the building, which is extremely atrocious. We've tried to do it. The carpets are high priorities, visual things that we're working on. So we're getting requotes for the carpet that we did. couple of years ago. Yeah, you two were here when I got beat.
We all got beat.
I got beat for carpet.
But it's far time to do that. I have some furniture upgrades that we've done as far as offices. We've done a lot of moving things around because of additional people. We have some furniture that we have ordered. We have the City Hall landscape project, which is to make it more of a xeriscape, remove a lot of the grass. Obviously letting it, a lot of it die back. We'll keep it cut because it looks a lot better than we actually do. Hopefully we'll move forward with at least the front half and replacing some of the vegetation or foliage in the front of the building and make that look a lot nicer. We're also going to narrow the walk path to make it legal, because we have walking that's going through the actual parking lot, which is not a good thing. So we're going to do some restriction and work on the front rail.
Yes, run that across.
We're going to run across so you can't walk through the planters and actually so people don't walk through there.
Just,
Make it solid so you have to walk through the sidewalks to walk into it.
did somebody hit the street light out there tonight?
The street lights have been rotting literally away. All the ones
Oh.
on the far side of the parking lot literally have just rotted off.
Yeah, we got one that's Leaning Tower Pizza big time.
Because it's breaking. If we push it back, it's gonna fall off. So that's actually coming very soon. We're actually pulling all of those kiln tower and those will be all solar.
Okay.
So we're gonna put the ones back in the parking to get safety back out in front. So we will be upgrading the solar lights all around City Hall, and those all will be solar. We're looking at some very similar to the ones at the senior center that we do.
Yeah.
Because you can't see the solar panels are all built into the top of the canopy, and those are all night sky friendly because they all shine down. The Central Park landscaping project, which we cleared a lot of that, all that bushes and stuff out here a couple of years ago. Hopefully we can move forward now and start working on parking lot cleaning up and make the entrance look a lot nicer than it did. Talked about the solar lights, the Central Park Greenscape, we have a couple, same thing. We already have upgraded all the lighting in there to LED. Most of the city facilities we've done conversions on Westway Station. All those have been upgraded to LED. The ones at the fuel site and of course are all LED. So we're slowly doing solar or LED upgrades on all city facilities. There's two large lights over the park that are mounted right now on some big old telephone poles. Those are one of the projects we're going to replace those and go with solar also at the park. Both sides park bathrooms, we need to finish that upgrade, which is do all the utilities, just the utilities. We have to relocate and move those, we stub those out to get out from any of the concrete work. When the project was being built, we needed to complete those.
Is it why the doors are locked most of the time? Okay. Do we have signs on there? I didn't check. Okay. Okay.
The Little League this year, we talked about earlier, in the year before, we didn't know what was gonna happen, so that control panel that does all the Little League fields and also the lighting, that panel, the bottom of it was set on the ground, and literally has rusted through. So safety wise, we need to replace that, it's band-aided right now, and so that's something we need to move forward pretty rapidly. We do have quotes on that, and it's mostly will be done in-house, we just have to add it.
And this is the Balsitis one, the big panel, or is this the other one?
At, behind the ball field, which was also tied to all the lighting for the golf course at one time.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it's the main tower panel behind the field, the golf course, that does all of that area. That's the main switch gear because it's literally bottom right out of the bottom. So we will do it right, we will pull it and pour a concrete pad like we should, and do it right. Continue with the ADA improvements.
You're going to be replacing windows on the south side of the building here? Both sides? Are you still watering on the south side of the building?
We are, just to keep the existing and keep the dirt and dust down, but we cut everything way back.
If you replace the windows and you keep watering with the wind, water getting on the windows, you're going to wind up with the same problem again. So, just a heads up to plan it accordingly. So,
Well, there's things you can do, like maintain them and keep things off to help alleviate that, which I don't know what would transpire, but for a long time, it would also just laying on the building and shooting on the building.
correct.
Part of the problem.
But those things happen. What I'm saying, if you're planning on going with either xeriscape or a drought-tolerant landscape, then you won't have the same issues because, yeah, so you won't have the same problem as, correct, as with the rotors and other sprinklers. Okay.
But it's well timed. I mean, it looks horrible. One of the projects that should be here moving forward real soon is also the city monument that'll identify City Hall.
Oh, finally.
That's in the works to actually put that back. And I can bring back the design of that or surprise you and have it set up one day. This will be a concrete monument, not as big as like one coming into town. That's a little overkill. Which will be on the corner and it'll have the city seal embedded in it.
I'd like to ask a couple of things real quick. City Hall parking. It's not sufficient for the business that comes in. What are we planning for that?
As you know, or hopefully know, all the parking on this side, even on the post office, except for against their building, is all city. That's not the post office. So all the parking that comes this way is all city property. The parking for the post office is a little square lot, so their parking really is on the other side of the building. That is actually city parking lot, except for against the building.
Years ago, the previous city manager and the previous public works director had designed a landscape or had asked us to assist in the northwest corner of the grass area. There was going to be also parking.
Employee parking. Yeah,
The northwest corner, yes.
northwest corner.
Yeah, the grass, the only place the grass was looking to stay was just the small little patch and along the tree line, was what we'll keep. And the stuff on the far side, we're not gonna deal with yet. So the front, landscaping from the corner of the building all the way around is what is the target.
Because the way you have on the west side, you have the driveway coming in. You could conceivably use that part of the area on the north side of that driveway for parking.
What we show right now is there is expanded parking on that end of the building, and it's mostly for traffic, or utilities and everything else in and out of the building, not for employee parking. At least that's what the plan is right now on that side of the building. And have not, actually, I've never seen front corner all the way across that employee parking. So, and we'll look at that. So we'll do some designs, with that. Some of the stuff I'll bring back are some of the pictures and the stuff we took from actually the city of Atalanta. Their scaping up front was done actually very nice. And it was a very drought tolerant, landscape.
Hesperia, have you been to their civic center? Man, it's very nice. Very, very nice.
Facilities, about 15 years ago, did that, all through their facilities, did a xeriscape, natural. So what they've done is natural foliage from around the area where they're at. Same thing, and removed all the grass and everything else, and those are very good models to look at.
Thank you, Craig.
One other question I was going to ask you is the power at Balsitis. That's why I thought we were talking about that power panel that provides for all those fields out there. We've had some issues with those.
Yeah, there's electrical upgrades. Everything is operational. We've done some work in there as far as how the lighting is. Those are high voltage lights. I don't remember. I think they're all 480. Same thing for the switchgear. And that runs all the way across. The irrigation time to put a little bit of effort into the park over there and actually clean some things up. So there was work done on the snack bar, as we know, to make that more viable. We've done electrical work over there because of the way the electrical was when they did the improvements inside the snack bar. We eliminated half the electrical, and we had electrical cords running all over the place. So some air conditioning with those types of things we're looking at, plus the internet service more fixed. Because right now we use a wireless system that we put out there that we can portably move in and out. We need to be a little bit better because we had it inside the building, but we can set those up so it has outside antennas that we actually get a lot better reception at the ball field because they use it for transmitting the game.
All right. Anyone have any questions? Okay. And you have some math on the next page as far as your budget goes. Anyone have any questions about those things?
So what I don't see is capital. There are some capital.
On the facility side, you're talking about the capital in that column, right? 4161, 720, and beyond?
I didn't update it.
Okay, so we'll look at that again tomorrow? Okay.
Because I budgeted money for obviously the windows and the landscaping outside.
Okay. Right. Yeah, we can hold just a moment. Just a typing change is it's medians, right? We don't have mediums, right?
Might be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know, some.
They're called center dividers.
Yeah, there are quite a few. Yeah, I know.
It's more than ample time, sir.
Mediums are that
Chappy,
phrase.
chappy.
Are you the one that said
comes from
personal
the
also
East.
instead of personnel?
Yeah, we need to fix those too. Yeah, globally, the personal needs to be personnel.
I got it.
And then non-personal is non-personnel all the way through. That's okay. That's it. So what do we have left here? The building and planning, you're still going to need to have some work done on those?
Yeah, I don't have the sheets that I
Okay.
I just verified that the wages, because I was looking at the staffing, and there are staffing that I've added in the budget sheets that I put in. So, I'm sure it's pretty well out close.
So we're not going to get into recreation admin tonight?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
But
So
building and planning, the significant change in building and planning is the addition of a community development director, so that and the intent in that is twofold. One, to,
Sorry, Bob, do you have a summary sheet for that?
yeah, it's page 15 of 25.
No, but
It's the summary.
the little directional
cover
thing,
sheet.
the narratives.
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, continue.
So it's, the significant change there is adding the position of community development director, so that we would be pulling planning, building, and cannabis enforcement, not enforcement, but the cannabis operations under the head of community development. And so that would be the addition of that position, which is built into the projection on the costs through the end of the year. Excuse me. We're continuing to budget for engineering services. If you go down through the 4170, 315, projecting engineering services 150,000 until we actually have found out whether we're going to have a contract engineer or in-house. That is for continuing to contract out those services. So again, here, this is the position that we've been talking about for couple of years. Where do we focus the whole cannabis thing? My recommendation, we focus it in a community development department where we will handle. That way, the people from the director on down who are directly involved in all elements with planning, zoning, and the building official issues, the building permits, all of that, and then we will have that one place where someone can go, and it truly should be for most development projects the only place they need to go, because they can go in and have access to that. That gives us a full-time person who is focusing on those efforts and principally in helping us to continue on and encouraging the development of the industry and being as responsive as we can in fulfilling those things. So that's the major addition there.
Okay, so Bob.
Just as a note for engineering, we have 4 scenarios flown, and actually 5. We have an RFQ, which is for the full-blown engineering services for state and federal projects. That's a very comprehensive and a very problematic thing now with Caltrans, not the FAA, but Caltrans. They're making it very difficult. We also, there's an easier method that they authorize, which is an RFP, which is for on-call engineering services, which seems to be a lot of our cities, sister cities are going to, or I should say cities across the state, because the process is an informal process where you just have to call engineers or request for services, and it's limited to, I believe, under $200,000, $190,000 of actual engineering services, which would go over multiple projects. So just the engineering fee, not expenses, not the actual cost of the project. That looks a lot better route, more than likely to take. Also, we have an RFP out for in-house engineering services, either contract and or in-house, and plus the position we have also flown. So we're trying to look at every scenario we possibly can to attract a city engineer, because the city engineer has to be separate from the contract engineering firm that manages Caltrans projects. One cannot oversee the
other.
So they've made it really difficult.
They did that, what, about 2 years ago? They started pushing that about 2 years ago?
And we've done a really good job, and I've always said our state and federal work with health engineering has really gone very smoothly. Those contracts have been very tight because of how the state literally sets the dollar amount on the funds. They're reimbursable. The in-house stuff we finally got dialed in, but a little too late, and plus our engineers retiring. The fees, we will always have some fees incurred, but we will spread those out for this department, especially the enterprise funds that uses engineering like sewer and water, because there's always engineering involved in things that we're doing. But we'll collect those fees, so it doesn't change how we collect for review of plans and stuff. That through planning, that will stay the same.
Thank you very much. So it's a net gain of 1 in the building and planning. Let me ask you a question, though. Where's Joe on here? I mean, his position. What's he called?
He technically and actually is the senior building official that's on the books, but he's the building official.
Okay, but the deputy building official?
Deputy, but that was replaced, if you remember, at the piece of last year.
Right.
To actual building official.
Let's change that then. Let's fix that, please. Because I thought that was him, but I didn't know him to be a deputy. Right.
Took his license and
Correct.
pulled his full license, so he was actually licensed.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, we'll fix that if we could.
Okay.
And then medical cannabis business. This is phase 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, this
This
just
is
shows
just
it zeroing
historical.
out at the end of.
Right, and we'll carry that for a couple of years till the numbers roll off the page, I guess.
Exactly.
Then the Planning Commission, pretty self-explanatory here.
The big changes in the Planning Commission are training. We're, for the first time, we're going to be taking the Planning Commission. There's a workshop that we're planning to have all of them attend so that they would be meeting with other planning commissioners in other jurisdictions, much like the council's workshop would be, getting the computer equipment so that they will also have the online access to the system, and then so the training, travel and training is the combination of going out and getting the training for them, and that will something they've needed for a long time, and I think they're going to be pretty excited to start exploring what they can really accomplish.
I don't disagree, but I really thought we had some budget for that last year. Because I know that I've been trying to encourage the planning commissioners to go to the professional development, much as we go to, and Parks and Recs goes to theirs, and the clerk, and, all these others. So I thought we had that. I'll look, but I thought we already had that budget.
And the OHV permit program, again, that's closing that out.
Yeah.
It's now a separate fund.
Yes. What?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I thought those were all current members.
You're funny. Ha ha. Parks Commission.
Parks Commission, similar things there. We're not sure that at this point the online access is that important for the Parks Commission, but we'll see how that evolves over this coming year and see if there would be, value in adding that to the work that they do.
While he's bringing that up, and this hasn't been totally brought forward, I know Gene and I have talked about it, Councilman Stump. The tablets that we're looking at are 2-in-1s, so they're either ors. So fold over A-frame, they're basically a touchpad, or you can flip them over and you have a full keypad. Preference from the Planning Commission was that. Is that also the preference of the council? And we're looking at 14-inch monitors, a 14-inch tablet.
Like the iPad Pro?
I've looked at Chrome. There's advantages to Chrome using that format over Windows, and one is the access to where if we made changes, they're live, and that's the big advantage. Is if we were making those changes right now, you make the changes, they're automatic with everybody. If it's a Windows program format, you have to shut them off and start them back up.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Don't do what? The Windows?
Don't. I bought a Surface Pro thinking it was going to be all that in a bag of chips. What do I do on that now? I put digital puzzles together. So I went and got the iPad Pro. Much, much better.
You're talking about a Chromebook, right?
Yeah. Well, or the software. So they're made by multiple different companies, HP, and HP is one that I'm looking at. Actually, Acer makes a very nice model too. But the biggest thing is to get a 15-inch screen, and not a lot of them make the 15-inch. No, they're not that big.
No,
we
should have two big ones that sit about this high.
So you can't see anybody.
And we just take care of. Yeah, exactly. No, that's not a phone book.
So they can. So is that? So is that kind of the format also?
It's up to these guys. These guys are going to have to live with it. Just the people that are leaving and the people coming on, they should make that decision.
They're 14-inch. Yeah, and that's the very common. They get really small, but that's going to be tough.
Tammy says she wants a screen like that right there, that size.
Well, remember, we're also looking at 4 monitors. One faces the council from both sides, and then they face back to the audience. So this really will come
Well,
obsolete.
I see how it is. We're leaving, so you guys are bringing all this new stuff in. I see how it is.
But why not if,
Take the projector and the screen with
Can I have the VHS also? Or the Betamax?
You got a
we
full,
do
yeah, the Betamax.
two
You have
side
the
by
full
side
setup.
where we wouldn't have to have that? We could have one that just shows that.
Well, everything you'll have on your tablet, but you can scroll through like Randigus and those things through the agendas at your leisure, but the monitors will display what's going on.
But one,
When we've tried to put things up for people to see.
They can't see it.
Be able to read them.
Yeah. And you got to remember, what we're transmitting to you will be what the audience now sees, so we don't have to move things all over the place.
Also, are these going to be redone so we have lights up that improve?
You want those no, they're going to be redone all right. They're going to come down.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, those will go bye-bye. To me, what those are is they're like for you're doing some kind of show up there and they shine it in your eyes so you really can't see what's going on out here.
About the boxes. Are you asking about the boxes?
I was talking about the small track lights.
Yeah, no, they're going away.
Okay, because
I don't even know if there's a switch that can you even turn them on?
I don't know.
Because I haven't accidentally ever found a switch.
There's all kinds of ways. Like the mayor has a Surface book. A Surface. I have one, and I have a Chromebook and a iPad. I don't use my Surface either, hardly at all.
Yeah.
And there's advantages to having an iPad versus a Chromebook. As Craig pointed out, the board I used to belong at my university, I went there, and there were about 30 of us working on one document, all updating it all at the same time, and it was amazing. And I had never done that, and they said, "Where have you been? We do this all the time here." So it's totally amazing on what you can do. Again, I like Apple, but I also like Chromebooks also. So, if the new council, when they come up, whatever they decide, I'm happy. But as the mayor, I agree with the mayor that a Surface would not be the way to go.
Did you show up to class with a Commodore 64?
And they're actually very proud of those, as Gene probably knows, in cost. So there is advantages, and I'll just tell you, there's advantages to having a Microsoft format. You can still use Chrome, as far as the program, or because it's Google. So that can still be on a Windows format. There's advantages to the Windows-based PCs versus the Chrome-based PCs. So I'm looking at all those to see what will give us the longevity and also the size. And one of the problems that was with the Chrome tablets is most of them are small.
But they have the 14s,
they
like
do.
you said, yeah. But
So,
I like this one. This is a little.
Acer
bitty one.
makes a very nice book, so that's one of the ones we're looking at.
If I could suggest something, we'll bring you some examples so that we're not.
Yeah, so we're not. Yeah, but truthfully, it's the new council that's going to be dealing with it. They should be
Right.
making that decision.
And so one of the things I want to stress is that I know that when we actually start implementing some of these things, if the council approves the budget as proposed, that people are going to say, well, you shouldn't be doing that because you're not taking care of police, you're not taking care of fire. I think one of the important messages for the council to recognize is we can do both, that this is not a matter of us taking from one to make sure that the other happens. We have put together a budget proposal for you that is fully funded, that is based upon the city's actual finances, and to continue to not do business the way it really should be done and present ourselves the way we should be, we need to recognize we can do both. We have the ability to address our public safety needs. We've obviously got to rebuild. We're not going to get them immediately, but to make our positions, that we'll be talking to the council specifically what we're going to do in labor negotiations, but we can do both. These things we're talking about here will in no way diminish our ability to fund public safety and to ensure that we go forward. What it will do is ensure that that we present ourselves as we really are, a city that is moving forward and progressing and doing business the way that it should be done. And I think you've been remarkably patient in the task of being the policymakers for the city, given the circumstances within which you have had to work. But given the uncertainty, I also understand why a lot of those decisions were made, because it was difficult to project forward to see where we were going to go. But I think what we've got now is we got some breathing room, we got the funds. Let's start, acting like the city we really want to be, and presenting ourselves in that manner, and allowing the policymakers the tools necessary to make the decisions. When we think about how often we've come to you and we've given you complex situations for you to make decisions from, and wanted to try and facilitate by putting some things on the screen and you can't see them. And, every time we wanted to get better at what we were giving you decision packages, the technology wasn't allowing us to prepare you for those kinds of things. Making a decision so that so on Friday afternoon when we say the agenda's ready, you light up your notebook and everything's there. Full color, you've got everything that you're going to see at the council meeting is there. The packets will be complete. You'll be able to find that. And any citizen who wants to log on will see the same thing. And so we're going to have that opportunity. And I think that far outweighs the, I'm saying, it doesn't outweigh anything. We're not doing one instead of another. We're doing both.
We're elevating our city.
We can accomplish all these things. Because the city didn't spend a lot of money in the past on things, we have some money. And so the reticence to spend money and as the reserves built up actually works to our benefit now, because we can proceed. And we have the wherewithal to do that. So.
Thank you for saying that, Bob. So we'll move into Parks and Recreation Department. Brenda.
All right. Well, I know it's getting late in the evening. I'll try to make this as quickly and as I can.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
All right, I'm done. No, just kidding. All right. So let's see. The highlights are, with minimum wage going up, that does affect Parks and Rec every year, because a lot of our staff does make minimum wage type salaries. We do at this time have one full-time open position that's gone unfilled since January, and I'd like to take that position that was another recreational assistant, like a clerical type position, and change that into a park programmer and try to start focusing back on more recreation. We've been doing a lot of building rentals, and over the years, there's been more layers added to audits and record keeping and things like that too, even for parks. So we're asking that position pay a little more, and that this person would be more of a backup to me, having somebody there to actually run day camp programs, because I have to be here certain nights and certain things, and so it's just making it more and more difficult to, lead the different camps and things. And the economy's better, and things are starting to move along where we are going to need the day camps again. We were, during the recession, there wasn't a whole lot of need. There wasn't a lot of people working. People were, doing things with their friends, watching their friends' kids and things like that. And then the other thing, I have one more position that I'm requesting this season is more like a general service type worker, just for the parks. This position would be somebody to take care of the daily maintenance and operation of the swimming pool in the summer. This type of a person, that way the lifeguards that we do have can spend more of their time actually guarding, because right now they spend a couple hours a day cleaning the pool. This position would also help take care of graffiti faster, set up tables and chairs for all of our building rentals, take down, do some of those kind of light housekeeping. We've taken on doing cleaning bathrooms and park trash and things like that, over the last couple of years. And that takes away from recreation. So our recreation staff is obviously now feeling more like a custodial staff, because we have so many more buildings. The pool building's beautiful and gorgeous, but there's a lot of maintenance and little things that need to be repaired. Lots of little painting jobs around the park. And then now with Tierra del Sol too, we're starting to paint all the picnic benches and the ball washers. So we need somebody just kind of dedicated to the parks. My staff and I went over to Balsitis last year, and we painted quite a bit over there too, just trying to keep it updated. For now, that's all I'm requesting, to see how that goes. In the summer, we definitely need help. It's just too much on the lifeguards to be out there cleaning the pool for 2 hours and then be out there the rest of the day doing additional. I mean, we could try to, I was thinking about outsourcing just the pool maintenance, but realistically, I could keep somebody busy there doing small tasks and setting up tables and chairs and taking down and all that kind of stuff. We could keep somebody busy all day.
And that's my concern, because if you have somebody, when you have a lot of tables and chairs that go up, one person isn't going to cut it. They're not. It's too much.
But you're going to still have to use your regular
Yeah, we're
folks.
still going to have to use our recreation staff. But right now, this last month we've been running a basketball clinic for the youth, and it's very hard to still get in everything else that we need to get done. And also the recreation staff, a lot of them come in the evenings, and it's already dark, so I can't even send them out too much to do too much maintenance in the evening and things like that. So for now, that's what I'd like to request, is just somebody to help out full-time on a daily basis to start getting things brought back up to the way it should look. Because right now, it doesn't look the way it should look, and I'm not proud of it. We try our best, but we're just feeling very thinly spread across.
Brenda, I'd like to also comment on that. When you have a general service worker, there can't be a 9-to-5er. You have problems that occur on the weekends that are not being addressed.
No, and this
they get
is
blasted out on social media,
Yeah.
and the phones start ringing.
This is why I first put that in here, was unfortunately because of a lot of the Facebook attention. We'd clean the park on Saturday, we'd leave on Sunday. Mondays, a lot of times we were fairly dark. All we had was like adult exercise and a few things. But by Sunday afternoon on Facebook, the park bathrooms were a mess from earlier parties and things like that. And we didn't have anybody to clean the park. So we were trying to run a 7-day operation, but we didn't have the people doing that. We had to leave it kind of unattended. And also doing the golf course kind of, we've had to back up that a lot. And, so we've just been scrambling around trying to take care of just the little general things. So it would be good to have that person work opposite days as some of the rec staff to make sure things are cleaned and covered.
And before you move on, I'm not sure I understand what a park programmer is. If you could probably tell us more about that, or give us more information on that, or explain it, because
Yeah, this would be more like somebody that could actually supervise the recreational aides to lead summer camps and sporting programs. I do that myself right now, a lot of it for like youth basketball. So I work all the Saturdays, like January, February, half of March, and also because of the other things that I'm doing with administration and stuff, that it is hard to grow. It's hard to add more programs. We don't really dare to add anything else because we just can't manage right now adding like a volleyball league or different things that the community would like. And we're growing, and we're getting asked for more things. People are getting interested in whatever pickleball is, I kind of know, and different things that are coming up. So we want to be able to have one person that actually can take charge when I'm not there and go on vacation, and have somebody to really back up the center there, and
back to work. No, I understand that now, but you're really trying to move it into a 7-day-a-week park operation.
We would like to go back to that. That is what we used to have. When I first started here, they even had 2 recreational aides on Sunday to work in the gym because it was a brand new facility and they didn't want to leave it unattended.
Well, one thing, that if you do that, and we're going to have a crossover with law enforcement too, you're going to have much more. You're going to have much more of a need in the park at that time, because of things that have been happening.
There are future ideas I know that the police have with, there's different grants and park police type things, and So far, we're not having a lot of trouble, but certain times of the year, you know, more graffiti pops up, and, you know, there's always going to be some vandalism here and there, especially with a big park.
No, it's not just the vandalism. It's the things that are happening with kids that are out there playing and getting pounded on by visitors or other people in the community. That kind of stuff. That's what I'm hearing about. Yeah. Okay, so you want to go through your budget?
Yes, ma'am. Well, the budget's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of changes from last year's budget. We're not trying to take on too many different new things right now. We are doing the golf course, and I think our one capital improvement project that I don't know if it's got incorporated here. Let me see. Yes. So we have one that we wanted was the playground, and we're trying the equipment for the playground.
That's community development block grant.
Part of it will be that. I think they was 81,000 or 84. That was what they were talking about at the last meeting, meeting before last, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be enough to do everything that we need in the park. We have the estimates for 3, and we did the estimates for Balsitis, for the trailer park, and for Central Park. And we'd like to get it all approved in this budget and just start doing it all at once. Right. Because then it'll be done at the same time. It's all failing. Obviously, we know that. Parks, especially out here in the heat, you're lucky if you get 10 to 12 years, and ours is looking at 18 at least right now. So we've kind of kicked this can down the road.
When we went to League of Cities, we picked up some information. I don't know if you've gotten some of that, but whatever I have, I'm going to put in your box here or get it to you somehow, because there's some other programs and opportunities that you can get some grant funding for.
It is hard. That is like the #1 grant that all park managers apply for.
What's that?
It is hard to get some of the funding. I have put in for a couple of grants, but every city needs parks and equipment. So what we need over at Balsitis is we don't have any play equipment for ages 5 to 12. We only have one piece for 3 to 5-year-olds. So we don't have anything for the bigger kids to do over there. That's something that we should definitely address.
I didn't get that. You don't have any what at Balsitis?
At Balsitis Park, there's one piece of play equipment, and it's for 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds.
Like a playground?
Playground.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have anything offering at that park for the older kids, you know, the like 5 to 12-year-olds.
Sounds like what we need to do is bring that updated figure back to the council on what those projects would cost based upon the what we could fund out of the block grant, and then what we need to fund out of the general fund.
Yeah, it'll be probably about 220,000 is kind of a rough estimate.
Also, I had a question about 111 and 112, dealing with the overtime. 'Cause
I'm exempt. I don't get overtime. I don't work overtime, and we try not to. We've taken it out.
Brenda's is one budget that rarely goes over.
Yeah.
She manages her funds. She's probably under budget most of the time. So that provides an opportunity for her to use some of those funds that you have budgeted in other areas within your budget for other opportunities for the park. I'm not saying it's perfect, but you do very well. You do very well with it. Brenda, there's a question. You have a staff composition on page 20 of 25. That
yes, it doesn't match mine at all.
Match.
I went over it with Cynthia, and I don't know why we didn't get it transferred onto
Y'all could
this.
get that updated. That would help.
I think this is reflecting our maybe winter. And we've also transferred, 4 to the golf course? So I don't know if that's separate right now.
Anything that's going on with the golf course is temporary. This needs to be what we're focusing on going forward. So that's what we need.
If y'all could update that would be, and then the positions.
We will update that.
Understood a little better. Of course, you have limited space here. That might be part of the issue.
No, it's just the wrong things.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about where we're up to so far in her budget? Anyone? Okay. It's just a question.
Yeah.
Also, one more thing. I don't know where fireworks ended up at, but we were planning on putting the whole fireworks fund on this budget so we don't have that crossover in between years anymore. That way, if we have the money this year, we can fund it for this July 4th and then go on from there every year. So.
Well, you want to do that when we do that after the first of the year to put it in that budget.
It's going to be due this April.
Yeah, we have to
Oh,
place
you have to do it in April. I'm sorry. You're right.
April's the latest.
Absolutely. I get that. Yes, you're right. My bad here. Okay.
$5,500 was the request. Correct?
I don't think it was
That's
that
what
high.
I saw.
Was it 55? That's not the whole thing then.
No, it's like over $10,000.
Well, maybe I made a mistake on it.
12,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's $12,000.
So we were going to try to double it, I think, this year and put it all in at once.
Wasn't part of it donations is why there's an offset?
Oh.
Yeah, you did have folks that donated, and they have over the years. Some have, and then those are kind of trickling off too. So you need to add that then, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I'll double check that. I'll double check the Manning dock, and I'll double check again. I think we have all the minimum wage and step increases included in the salaries, but I'll double check just to be sure.
Okay, very good. Are y'all comfortable with us moving on to pool and marina? Let's go into that then.
So technically, we could put half of the general or a portion of the general service worker could technically go in this budget because they would be doing pool maintenance in the summer. They'd also have to take a class for that if we wanted to split it.
Okay, so your lifeguards, part-time, you actually have 6, not 2.
Yes, we have 2 that are working currently, so I think that is
okay.
What's going on with this staffing document is because we have so many part-time, temporary, and then seasonal that come in and out, and I think we just had 1 leave recently.
So this should reflect what we're looking for in this budget.
Correct.
Okay.
But none of them have lifeguard pay right now. They're put, if I keep a lifeguard, I've kept a couple of them that wanted to stay on, and they're now recreational aides. And then at the end of, before they go be a lifeguard again, we change their status and put them back to lifeguard pay, which is a little bit higher than recreational pay. But I don't have any major projects coming up. The pool building's fantastic, and I think everything's in great shape over there. We have to leave enough for motors, and really on this budget for the pool, we only are looking at about 5 weeks, because then we'll be into the new budget year. So it looks a little lower, but that's why.
Okay.
We have most of it, July, August, and the first week of September is most of the pool budget.
Anyone have any questions? Nope. Let's move on then. You don't really have anything proposed for improvements in projects?
Yes, we do have the playgrounds.
Okay, so we're going to come back, and you're going to have to bring that back to us.
Yes.
Because it's not on here. So we will do that at a different time. Let me see what this is.
So Fund 4563, 64, and 4815 are simply closing that out. We allocate it differently going forward.
This is an eye test.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's just the summary of all the, yes, it is.
Okay.
This is just a summary.
I failed. I failed to read it. Sorry.
I will make it readable.
Thank you for these poor visioned folks. I'm not going there. Anyone have any comments?
How many more workshops do we have?
We have, how many more workshops? We have one tomorrow.
Tomorrow
and
night
that's,
will be Public Works
can we do Public Works
and Enterprise Funds.
and Enterprise Funds?
Yeah.
Can we do those together?
Yes.
And then after that?
The 6th.
Then after that, we would, if the council wanted to, we could schedule another work session to bring everything else together. But we're scheduled for April 4th.
April?
Thursday night for adoption.
No, we're not April.
Yeah, April, wow.
I won't be, I'll miss
December
that one,
6th.
sorry.
It was December 6th that
We
I
were
thought,
gonna- Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to wait till April.
Jeez.
Oh, we can wait till April.
Yeah, you
Might get a
guys
little
can wait till
tense.
April, but we'll be gone.
Yeah, because you got to be coming back.
And you're dreaming.
So if we're able to give you all of the updated stuff tomorrow night, then we should be finished.
Yeah,
Unless
oh, that
there are
will add a little bit more time. Yeah, that's true. It'll add a little bit more
Yeah.
time.
So we should be able to get everything through.
Okay.
And bring those updated figures, and then if the council approves, then we'll put it into final form and bring it to you for final adoption.
Okay, that sounds good. Anybody have any concerns about that? That sound reasonable? All right, then I'll look for a motion for us to continue till tomorrow night at 6 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Plans to move the lights on the Tails Field?
No.
That field's too short.
Well, I know, but we got that massive drainage ditch behind there.
So there's
Is
no
why.
way, there's no possibility of changing the field?
No, because we can't change the drainage, because that's as wide as the easement. So we moved it back. So we moved the fence back. That's why it's not the way it used to be. So it actually goes back behind the light. And then it curtails right into, so there wasn't a whole lot. So they asked about it, so I have to go back over there and look again. But we did move it back as far as we could. But to move the